pathetic, hopeless. Those are the words Sky News used to describe their own side's youth wing, that is, the young Liberals. And while this might sound like just another day in the political playground, what's brewing here is a lot more serious. A battle over the soul of the coalition. A battle that could decide whether they stay in opposition for the next decade or longer. Hi, I'm Tony Tonkin, and this is the Tony Tonkin Show, where we strip away the spin, dismantle the outrage machine, and get to the truth of what's really going on in Australian politics. If you believe political commentary should be based on reason, not just noise, hit like, share the video, and subscribe right now. It's the only way to make sure independent voices like ours can keep cutting through. Now, let's start with what actually happened. The New South Wales Liberals, yes, the next generation of coalition leaders, have come out and said something pretty bold. The party needs to rethink its tight relationship with Sky News. Why? Because Sky's hard right talking points, US-style culture wars and echo chamber approach aren't winning elections. In fact, the argument is that they're pushing away exactly the voters the coalition needs to win back: young Australians, urban moderates and multicultural communities. In other words, you can't win 2025 or any election after it if your message only appeals to people who already agree with you. So how did Sky News respond? With debate? With reasoned counter-arguments? No. They went straight for the political sledgehammer. They called the young Liberals pathetic and hopeless.
Meanwhile, of course, the young Libs are completely clueless, completely hopeless. The young Libs have come out and they've told the party to distance themselves from Sky News, Sky After Dark. How pathetic. The last time the Liberal Party distanced themselves from Sky News was during the last election, when they ignored every single piece of advice being offered by this show and other shows and did the complete opposite and lost the biggest disaster they've ever had.
It's the oldest trick in the political media playbook. Don't address the substance of the criticism, just attack the messenger. The problem here is that it makes Sky look less like a serious news outlet and more like a hyper-partisan guard dog, not protecting democracy, but protecting its own brand of ideological purity. And the young Liberals, well, they've just learned what happens when you challenge the media machine your own side relies on. Now, here's where it gets interesting and dangerous for the coalition. Relying almost exclusively on Sky News for messaging is like trying to fish in a pond where you've already caught every fish. Sure, the people watching Sky News will cheer. They'll clap along to the talking points about political correctness, immigration, and the latest woke outrage.
Here's the funniest thing.
I love this bit of analysis because they're blaming Donald Trump-style culture wars for Peter Dutton's historic election. Peter Dutton refused to engage any Donald Trump-style culture wars.
He refused to engage any issue.
But they were never the problem. They were never the voters who needed convincing. Meanwhile, there's an entire ocean of Australians who don't watch Sky News, and many of them are the swing voters who actually decide elections. The young Liberals are basically saying, hey, maybe let's take our message outside the bubble before the bubble pops. But the senior party figures tied to Sky's coverage seem either unwilling or unable to take that advice.
If he actually listened to Sky News, as Rowan said, he might have actually got a result that wasn't shameful. But instead, he actually did precisely what the media and these beta males and pathetic women in the young Libs. I mean, why are the young Libs attracting just the worst of the worst? What happened to the best and brightest, the bold policy ideas coming from these young libs. No, now we just get this sort of Guardian, ABC, SBS messaging. I mean, go join the Teals. Start a young Teals group if there isn't one already, because if this is the future of the Liberal Party, it has no future.
Maybe because Sky has become more than just a media partner. It's become a comfort blanket. Now, let's zoom out a little bit. This isn't happening in a vacuum. The coalition just suffered a devastating election loss, one of the worst in modern history. Entire electorates swung away, not just in inner cities, but in suburban belts that used to be solidly Liberal. The party's messaging didn't just fail to connect, it actively pushed some people away. Younger voters especially have tuned out entirely, and not just because of politics, but because of tone. The constant outrage, the culture war framing, the imported US style politics. It's not just out of step with modern Australia. It's alienating to a generation that's more diverse, more digitally connected, and less interested in the old political tribal lines.
Well,
There's
here's
no
the thing.
need
Here's the
for
thing.
it.
I mean, there are plenty of young Liberals out there, and there are plenty of young
Are there?
Sky News viewers.
Where are they,
They're
James?
not in the.
Are they in the room with us now?
They're
Because
not
I
in the
can't
young
hear them.
Liberals. They're not in the young Liberals.
No,
That's where they are.
They're
They're
actually
young
working.
Sky
They've
News
got
viewers
jobs.
out there. The
They've
young
got jobs.
Liberals, particularly in New South Wales, they all live in apartments in Potts Point with their designer dogs, and they think that that they're in touch with mainstream Australia because the price of coffee went up. This idea that there was some sort of culture war, as you say, Rita, is hilarious. The only thing that was MAGA is somebody went through Jacinta Price's Instagram feed and found a picture of her at Christmas wearing a MAGA hat. I mean, that was the most MAGA that anything ever got in that whole election.
The young Liberals see it. The data backs it up. But Sky's business model depends on keeping the outrage cycle spinning. If the coalition doesn't change course, here's the risk. They cement themselves as the permanent opposition. And here's the irony. The young Liberals' warning isn't a betrayal of conservative values. It's an act of survival. They're basically saying, if we keep letting Sky News shape our political image, we're done. It's the political equivalent of telling a friend their parachute isn't packed and getting called pathetic for mentioning it. And let's be real. The Liberals have a point that appeals beyond politics. Any organisation that only talks to its own echo chamber eventually collapses in on itself. The choice for the coalition is simple. Do you want to keep performing for the crowd in the Sky News studio, or do you want to actually win elections again?
Sky After Dark.
So, look, everybody, so what do you think? Are the young Liberals right to push back against Sky News? Or is the coalition better off doubling down on the culture war playbook? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section. But remember, I read them all, and the discussion is what keeps this channel alive. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who still thinks political strategy begins and ends on a single TV network. I'm Tony Tonkin, and this was the Tony Tonkin Show. See you next time.